If it is comfortable for you to do so, please close your eyes. Sit comfortably with your feet on the floor. Relax your body, bringing your awareness inward. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. As we go into meditation, remember the words, God is, I am. I am in the presence of God, radiating the power of peace right here, right now. In a state of peace, I recognize that no condition can cause me unrest. Peace is in my breath, flowing in my mind, in my body, and in my spirit. I am in the presence of divine wisdom right here, right now. May I see, hear, and sense all that I need to know for the moments ahead, flowing from the infinite, universal, divine wisdom. Divine ideas are flowing to meet my every need. As I quiet my thoughts in prayer, I open to rich possibilities within the divine mind. I remember that all possibilities begin with my great capacity of imagination, through which I envision the good I desire. With an open mind, I pray in the silence. Steady in the presence and power that God is, and I am. I am expressing the unifying power of divine love. I uphold the entire world and every living being in the world with a clear mind and a loving heart. Centered in peace, I am radiating the love of God, because God is, and I am, right here, right now. And so it is. So the theme of this month is imagination. And the title of this talk today is The Power of Imagination and Questions. Imagination is defined as the ability of the mind to be creative and resourceful. So today we will explore how we access our imagination, our creativity, our divine wisdom, and our connection to God. And we will examine what gets in the way of that, as well as to explore the power of questions. In Mark chapter 9, verse 23, states, all things are possible if you believe, and I believe. So let's first talk about what gets in the way of using our imagination, our connection to God. I've gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom from the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. And one very important piece of information that I received from this program was the word halt. How many of you are familiar with the word halt? Thank you. HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. We don't allow ourselves to get hungry, angry, lonely, tired. How come? Because when we get in a state of halt, we are more likely to break our abstinence from whatever our addiction might be: nicotine, alcohol, sugar. And so it's very important. So let's take a look. Hungry. When I'm hungry, my blood sugar drops and I can't access the wisdom inside. Eating healthy, also key to accessing my divine wisdom inside me. Angry. Sometimes anger can encourage us to take on causes. For example, in veterinary school, my college classmate's brother was killed by a drunk driver, and his mother formed a MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving chapter in Puerto Rico, channeling that energy of anger into something good. Lonely. The power of our church community to help people feeling lonely. And as we look at the last 2 years of the pandemic, very difficult for people who felt isolated or who were in nursing homes or retirement communities. And then lastly, tired. The power of sleep. We know what sleep deprivation does to us. The power of sleep to be able to access my divine connection, my creativity, my wisdom. And while teaching at Ohio State with veterinary students, I added S on the end of that to HALT. It became HALTS. And the S stands for stress. Monitoring the stress in my life. I used to suggest to veterinary students that they not post on social media when they're halts. A student raised her hand and said, well, that's my life. And I said, okay, then maybe not good to be on social media. Now, we know that's funny, that we don't really want to stay off. However, I have to be mindful of the state of mind I'm in when I'm in this state of halts, because my power to think, to be creative, to connect with my divine wisdom is significantly reduced if I'm in that state of halts. I like the serenity prayer. That also comes from the 12 steps in the 12 traditions, at least where I learned that. The serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Now, I also like the wisdom prayer, and I'm not sure if you've heard this before. Grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the people that I can, and the wisdom to know that person is me. Powerful. And as my mentor, Kay Shepard, would say, one of my favorite quotes of hers, bless them, change me. Bless them, change me. So let's take a look at the neuroscience of stress and burnout. Again, which stops us from being creative and using our imagination, innovation. Many years ago, in 1995, Dr. Daniel Goleman coined the term amygdala hijack. What causes an amygdala hijack? What is it, and what happens to our mind and body when we're triggered? You see, the primitive brain, the amygdala, kept us safe centuries ago when our options were to run from danger. The amygdala triggers the fight, the flight, or the freeze response. Are you aware when you're triggered? And what can you do about it? We'll discuss more of this in our workshop this afternoon. But if I'm triggered, there's a thought behind that is triggering this emotional reaction. And self-awareness and becoming aware of our thoughts, our body sensations, emotions, and reactions is key. Deepak Chopra said, I can't change what I'm not aware of. In fact, it's impossible. Coming home to the self, being self-aware. That's what much of the work of Byron Katie is about, that we talked about the last time I was here. Dr. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, philosopher, writer, and Holocaust survivor. In his classic book, Man's Search for Meaning, he speaks of being in the concentration camps and having everything taken away except for one thing. And I quote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." He also went on to say, when we no longer are able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. As Kay would say, lest them change me. So let's talk about the neuroscience of burnout and stress and the sacrifice syndrome. This comes from the work of Dr. Richard Boyatzis and Dr. Annie McKee, who wrote the book Resonant Leader and Becoming a Resonant Leader. And they talk about the nervous system. We have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system. Now, our sympathetic nervous system is activated by stress. Our body releases epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol. And elevated levels of these cause blood pressure to increase, our immunity decreases, and the result of our overstimulation of our sympathetic nervous system time and time again is stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, ulcers. The antidote to stimulation or stress is activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. That releases things like oxytocin and vasopressin, which lower our blood pressure, enhance our immunity. Our mind can be creative and we can imagine. Positivity is enhanced. Last week I had a coaching client of mine reach out and say that she had some shower thoughts of imagination. Now what she meant is not showering thoughts. In the shower, which is a parasympathetic nervous system activity, her imagination was enhanced. There are people who have whiteboards in their shower because that's where their amazing ideas come from, when their parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated. You know, for me, it's swimming. Now, what may be a parasympathetic nervous system activity for me may be different for you. For some people, swimming, very stressful. For me, in the water, my connection to God. Ideas flow through me. My challenge is to make it out of the water to a pen so that I can write those down. But what are the parasympathetic nervous system activities that you can use to counteract the stress in our daily lives? Sleeping, going to a movie, coming to church, reading the daily word, laughter, spending time with family and friends. Again, find what works for you. When we enhance our parasympathetic nervous system, we're able to think better. It enhances our cognitive function and creativity, connecting to imagination. And the research clearly shows that, again, we have stress in our lives today. That's the reality. And how I balance my parasympathetic nervous system is the key. And I have to balance that throughout the day. I can't wait until the weekend. So can I, in my day, my stressful day, incorporate parasympathetic nervous system activities? Just the fact of eating lunch, not at your computer answering emails, taking time to eat lunch, to walk in nature, to phone a friend, to listen to a positive music. All things that can help me get back to my imagination. So let's talk about mindset for a second. Many years ago, I read a book called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. What's a mindset? She defines mindset as the beliefs, the assumptions, expectations, and possibilities we hold about ourselves, others, and the world. Our mindset can change from moment to moment, and we can choose to change our mindset. She talks about having an open mindset versus a closed mindset. And in the work of Byron Katie, she also talks about having an open mind that is open to everything and closed to nothing. When I'm open, I'm able to listen, to learn, to be creative, imaginative. In a closed mindset, I think I know it's my way and I'm right. And what kind of a mindset do I have moment by moment? During the pandemic, I had the opportunity to listen to a book on Audible as I walked called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. Now, I will say originally I had a closed mindset to this book and to this author because you see, I taught communication at Ohio State to the veterinary students, and I knew how to ask questions, to teach them to ask questions, to gain a history from a client. In addition, I was in a coaching program and knew the power of questions, asking questions of clients to have them see the divine wisdom inside of them. So I had a closed mind because I thought I knew everything about questions. And as I was listening to the book, Walking, I had an aha moment because I knew my life and my teaching was about to shift. You see, through Dr. Adams' program and book, I learned a new way to look at my mindset. So she describes two mindsets, which goes along with Dr. Carol Dweck's work. The judger and learner mindset, and we have both. Again, the judger and mindset, the learner mindset, we have both. If you're a human being and you put your two fingers here on your wrist and you feel something, i.e. a pulse, you have both mindsets. So what is the judger mindset? It's more closed-minded, judgmental, critical, certain. What's the learner mindset? It's more open-minded, curious, creative, imaginative. One of the things she said that really I latched onto is that our thoughts are determined by a preceding question. I want to repeat that. A thought is determined by a preceding question. And so I started to ask myself, what questions am I thinking with? What questions am I asking myself about me? And what questions am I asking myself about you? What questions am I thinking with when I'm in judger? What questions am I thinking with when I'm in learner? And if I'm in judger, or the judger pit, how can I return to a learner mindset, an open mindset? And we can use things called switching questions. So I'd like to share my story with you and how this work changed my life. July 18, 2021, I was right here, right now, giving a message about the work of Byron Katie, doing a workshop on the work of Byron Katie. And during the talk, I mentioned my father, who was gave me my strong faith growing up. And the next day, I was actually in Dr. Adams' class called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. That Monday I had class. However, I wasn't able to attend because I went home to Portsmouth, and during class I was following the ambulance to hospice as we moved my father to inpatient hospice. My father transitioned that Friday. Tough time. And I was grieving. Over the weekend I came back to Columbus. I was grieving and angry. You see, I was with people who didn't grieve like I did. I'm an introvert. I process internally. Around me were family members who were extroverts wanting to talk things through. I'm in Columbus over the weekend, and I'm anticipating visitation and a funeral, and anticipating all that would go wrong. And I wasn't in a good place. And so I attended class. It was the 5th of 5 classes. I attended class for one reason. Yes, I could have probably gotten out of class because of my circumstances. I was in there for one reason, and that one reason was to create switching questions so that I could have a different outcome at visitation and a funeral. Switching questions can shift your consciousness and change your life. Well, here are the questions that I came up with, and I wrote them down on a note card and went over and over again as I drove to Portsmouth. The questions were, how would my dad want me to treat them? What would my father want me to say to them? How might they be processing the loss of my dad? What might they be thinking, feeling, and needing? And I also asked the same questions internally. What would my dad want me to say to me? How can I take care of myself during these next 2 days? What am I thinking, feeling, and needing? Taking care of me so I can help take care of others. And the result was amazing. It was just such a beautiful time. I could hold this space for others. I could take time when I needed to. I heard stories I wouldn't have heard otherwise. That's when I realized the power of switching questions to bring me from the judger pit to more of a learner mindset, the God mindset as I see it. The power of imagination in questions. Yeah, that's the power of questions. So first, take care of yourself. Am I in a state of halts? Maybe I need to eat. Perhaps I need to call it a night and go to sleep. Perhaps I need to do a judge your neighbor worksheet on a family member. Perhaps I need to come to church to be with my community. Next, stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system to combat stress and access your imagination and creativity. And finally, ask powerful questions to develop a learner mindset, to access the divine wisdom and love within each of us. So I'll leave you with a poem today, one of my favorites, by Dr. Virginia Satir, an American author and psychotherapist, best known for her work in family therapy. She was friends with a neighbor girl who was in her teens, who was having challenges with her family. And she asked Dr. Satir, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? And out of that space and her experience, she wrote my favorite poem. It's called I Am Me. In all the world, there is no one exactly like me. Everything that comes out of me is authentically mine because I alone choose it. I own everything about me. My body, my feelings, my mouth, my voice, all my actions, whether they be to others or to myself. I own my fantasies, my dreams, my hopes, my fears. I own all my triumphs and successes, all my failures and mistakes. Because I own all of me, I can become intimately acquainted with me. By so doing, I can love me and be friendly with me in all my parts. I know there are aspects about myself that puzzle me, and other aspects that I do not know. And as long as I am friendly and loving to myself, I can courageously and hopefully look for solutions to the puzzles and for ways to find out more about me. However I look and sound, whatever I say and do, and whatever I think and feel at a given moment in time is authentically me. If later some parts of how I looked, sounded, thought, and felt turn out to be unfitting, I can discard that which is unfitting, keep the rest, and invent something new for that which I discarded. I can see, hear, feel, think, say, and do. I have the tools to survive, to be close to others, to be productive, and to make sense and order out of the world of people and things outside of me. I own me, and therefore I can engineer me. I am me, and I am okay. And so it is.